What's good, fam? So last time we came together, we looked at life on the extreme of the imagination, on the extreme of you using your ability to think as a way to process everything that you encounter and convert every present experience into the past that you're familiar with. So that's one compromise that we live with. One of the ways that we end up in a compromised state is that we do not listen to anybody but ourselves, even when we think we have a host full of teachers that we genuinely enjoy and eat with. But if you be honest, who chose your teachers? Who chose the people that you say are the bearers of good news and truth? Who is it that you have decided is suitable to lead you? Was it the person who was saying something that was foreign to you that you didn't agree with, that you decided to follow? Or was it the person whose presentation most closely matched with your assumptions and your superstitions and beliefs align with? Words are so cool to uncover, and when used in their proper context, they can be really helpful in stimulating thought and understanding. Now, we all know that the true benefit to our existence is being able to rise above all thought into the perfected state. And that's going to take a dose of radicalness. So radical defined is especially of change or action. So in the subject of change or action, relating to or affecting the fundamental nature of something far-reaching, something thorough, refers to what it is to be radical, advocating or based on thorough or complete political or social change, representing or supporting an extreme or progressive section of a political party. A person who advocates thorough or complete political or social reform, a member of a political party or part of a party pursuing such aims, a group of atoms behaving as a unit in a number of compounds. Radical. We all would love to believe that we are free radicals. We are a group of atoms behaving as a unit in a number of compounds. We love to believe that we do everything thoroughly and we are far-reaching in all of our efforts. We love to believe that the methods that we operate by are effective in changing the fundamental nature of things and even people. Again, I said we like to believe. Just because we like to believe something doesn't make it true. Actually, liking to believe it is an indication that it is not true. So what is it that's needed in the sense of being radical in your approach? Understand, have you been radical in your approach prior to this moment? Have you applied yourself truly, fully, thoroughly, in a far-reaching way to the application of such practices that induce within you and those around you fundamental changes of nature? Or have you lived your life on the other side of the spectrum? So you can't forget that on one side, one extreme, you have radical. On the other side of the spectrum, you have compromise. And you and I know way more about compromise than we do about being radical. It's much more normal, much more average, much more common within our culture to have presentations of compromise, to submit to compromise, than it is to become radical about the truth and your application of the truth and your trust in the source of the truth and your trust in your ability to apply the truth and your trust in the truth's effectiveness in those that you apply and extend truth towards. See, after there's a shift in what you are focused on and what you have an appetite for, you must become radical in the pursuit and radical in the extension in what you say has all value for all mankind. You've been compromising since way before you knew what the word was, meant, or how to spell it. You've been compromising in ways that you've lost the ability to see because it happens so rapidly. And you listen to the voices that the ego is equipped with that are always justifying the dysfunction that it operates out of. So in an attempt to fool the world, you actually guarantee that you fool nobody but yourself. Everybody else is kind of a 50-50. And even if you do pull the blind over their eyes, they'll feel that something's off. They might not know what. Love is such a funny conversation to have with a many of humans. Because for one word to have such consistent meaning, it has been given so many different definitions and faces. You were not called to live a moderate life. You were not called to live a compromised life. You were designed for a radical existence. You were designed for a radical eternity. Nothing about you is common. Nothing about you is average. Nothing about you is normal. You are a derivative of a supernatural creator. You come from supernatural. You were equipped with supernatural. You were designed to extend the supernatural. The supernatural was embedded within you. Nothing regular about you. You charged up. But it's you submitting to this compromised, moderate, regular, mundane life based on the moderate paradigms, fears that you submit to. You going into overthinking and diving into your fear box, your worry processor is not radical movement, radical motion, radical mentality at all. Because ultimately, you thinking or overthinking cannot and will not ever alter the fundamental nature of whatever action or entity it is that you've made your subject. The only way to radically change something is to radically apply the truth that radically sets you free. And the crazy thing is, I'm not even talking about waking up, putting on 5-piece suits and yelling in people's face on a consistent basis, or going door to door, using your gas money to promote that you're the witness of Jehovah, like all of us are called to be. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about you radically trusting the truth that you say you know, you radically applying the truth that you say that you're experiencing, you radically pursuing the purpose that you say you have discovered within yourself that applies to the edification and the sanctification of all. How do you casually connect with such a radical leader? Understand, if you're going to join a radical cause, it's going to take some radical action. And if you ain't about that, then you need to get out of the way until you feel the fire rage on the inside of you that drives those who are on the field full steam already. You want radical outcome, but you give compromised effort. You want radical outcomes and changes, but you give compromised effort. You get moderate out when you put moderate in. And I'm not talking about you going in and trying harder and pushing harder and watching yourself for missing the mark more and being more strict and extending consequences to yourself and insulting yourself when you're not getting it right. That's not what I'm talking about, because that's not radically adapting to what truth is and the effective way. That's what you've been doing. You've been judging and critiquing yourself constantly. How's that working for you? You've been trying not to sin and miss the mark. How's that working for you? You've been trying to make sure that you're not pissing Jesus and God off, whoever the two are, if they're one or whatever. How's that working for you? You've been trying to meditate. How's that working for you? You've been wanting to get into yoga and other healthy practices and eating habits. How's that working for you? Tough task to stay on, ain't it? Especially when you're constantly getting carried off with the next wave of thought. So we can agree. We casually apply truth and we casually witness its effectiveness. If we will radically apply truth, we will witness a radical shift in the experience and outcomes. But you're afraid to be radical because radical's gonna set you apart. You're afraid to be radical because radical's gonna have you moving different. You're afraid to be radical because radical's gonna have you going against the grain. You're afraid of being radical because radical gets you disapproved of, has you misunderstood, keeps you misinterpreted, keeps you outside of the approval of those who are trying to be acceptable in the sight of others by being normal. Do you have any recollection of some past radical thinkers, some past radical activists that have embarked along the journey of helping those who remain in the darkness? Just real quick, we'll name some. Won't get into too many other details of either one. Malcolm X was definitely a radical leader. Martin Luther King Jr. was absolutely a radical leader. Fred Hampton was absolutely a wonderful, articulate mouthpiece and a very radical thinker. Angela Davis, very radical in the approach. John Brown, radical in the approach. Huey P. Newton, radical. Cesar Chavez, radical. We can do this. We can do this. But the common theme that you will find on the list of radical thinkers and radical leaders of U.S. history is most of them were assassinated. Because in this experience, to be radical is to be disruptive to the status quo. And if you disrupt the status quo, you will ruffle the feathers of those who have established a sense or false sense of order that they would like others to abide by. And don't get me wrong, I don't recommend that you submit to such entities and that you live your life in fear, cowering out of the fact that these entities have established such illusionary order and seek to, by the use of illusions, further the extent of reach of the illusionary order. I'm not telling you to submit to that, but I'm saying it exists. I'm saying that there are definitely entities that are designed for your detriment so that they can gain capital. Understand, destroying you is not a big enough deal. It's getting paid for keeping you sick and in the dark. That companies and governments are interested in.